I'm Kais Tenchi, director of the Toronto Motorcycle Film Festival, and today I have the pleasure to announce the latest member of our 2018 TMFF judging panel, Vicki Gray. Vicki and the other 4 members of our judging panel, who are from the motorcycle industry, community, and media, will select the winning films for the various award categories: Best Canadian Film, Best Feature Film, and Best Short Film. With that, here's Vicki.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, it's a real pleasure.
I'm very excited to be chatting with you. I know you are extremely swamped with International Female Ride Day, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I appreciate the time that you're taking out of your schedule to chat with me. First of all, for all of our listeners, a little bit of your background. You've been a motorcycle instructor for about 30 years all over Europe, North America, and in the Caribbean, where you taught the Netherlands Antilles Police Force, in fact.
Yes.
Right. You've raced motorcycles in Europe, Super Sport 600 class, and now vintage bikes too?
Yes, I'm not racing this year, but I'm teaching the race licensing for that.
Okay. You co-hosted TV shows on the Discovery Channel. You founded Race Girl Motorsport. You're a journalist. You founded and now run Motoress, which is the world's #1 women's motorcycle magazine. And you founded and run International Female Ride Day. That's quite a resume, Vicki.
Yeah, just listening to you, I'm getting tired.
And this is these are just like some highlights. It's much more extensive than that if you look at it in detail.
Good fun, huh?
Yeah. Let me start with, where did this passion for motorcycling come from?
Yeah, I wonder that myself. I would say, growing up as a young girl in a small town, I was a bit of a tomboy. I liked building rafts, climbing trees, and when I was a kid, I barrel raced horses. I thought that was quite fun, but I think all in all, there's no one in my family that rode a motorcycle, but my father was a pilot, and he had his own plane. So if I had to lead it back to anything, I'd say it was him. Because the takeoff in a small aircraft is similar to what I felt on a bike.
I guess at some point you must have thought, I like motorcycles, but then there was a decisive moment when you said, I'm going to learn to ride and I'm going to ride a motorcycle. How did that come about, and when was that?
Yeah, that actually, if I back up a little bit, when I was 16 in my hometown, I did have a plan to get a scooter as a vehicle for transportation. But my father lined that up. It was an old Vespa. And my father, apparently someone broke in the dealership and stole some parts that couldn't be replaced. So I ended up getting a car. And a few years later in my corporate life, I found that I was working so much that each summer I said I have to have an outlet away from my job for my sanity. So one summer I took sailing lessons, and that didn't really do much for me. And the next summer I was managing the eastern provinces, and I took the motorcycle training course, and that was it. I was hooked.
Over the course of your motorcycle career, you've really pushed the boundaries of what people believe women can or should do, which needs to be applauded.
I do have to say that, there were women in the 1930s that were pioneering motorcycling for women, and they of course faced a lot more of a challenge, many more challenges that I ever did racing or trying to represent and make space for women in motorsport. Back then too, there were women such as Ilse Thoret, who raced in the 30s and won races but wasn't acknowledged because she was a woman and not allowed to race. But the guys celebrated after. But it's still in my life, and what evolved for me as one of the few women instructors for motorcycling, when I got started, and also later on when even trying to train the police in the Caribbean, it was very difficult to get them, to acknowledge me as an equal in the sense of qualification. So you just continue to work away. And then it was later years when I saw that I really wanted to enhance and help the women specifically and make room for that in motorsport. And that's what got me into race girl motorsport. Yeah, but it's just a lot of perseverance, standing up, but also having to deal with alienation. In some cases, standing your ground can also mean you're not invited. You're not part of the certain groups. But, if everyone gave in along the way, where would we be now even?
Right.
As you mentioned that, I remember back in the days when I started teaching that so many women later on would say to me, when I saw you in the parking lot demonstrating that bike and handling things, that told me I could do it. And of course that helps also for men. They say, hey,
absolutely.
If she does it, I can do it. So
sure.
And I think that's also something that sort of propelled me forward, because I thought, there is this whole perception of what people think racing is or what they think motorcycling is. And sure, bikes are heavy, but you can be taught how to manage that. And when you watch a person racing, it looks all scary and fast, but when you're on that bike, it doesn't feel like that at all. So that was part of the reason I started Race Girl, was to change the perception that women have of motorcycling, but also of what motorcycling had of women.
Let's talk about International Female Ride Day for a minute. So it's in its 12th year now.
Yeah.
And it's coming up May 5th.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're up to your eyeballs and stuff there.
Yeah.
You started this event as a way to show the world that women ride too, that they've been riding as long as motorcycles have been around. And now it's this global event. Do you know how many countries are involved and how many women?
It would probably be easier to tell you which countries are not involved. And I'll tell you, with the changes in Saudi Arabia, I'm sure they'll be on board next year.
I wanted to ask you about that actually, because I read on the Motorist website back in the early 2000s, I guess, the International Female Ride Day brought about a group of women who were able to, for the first time ever, ride the streets of Tel Aviv.
I know, that was special.
That must have been amazing.
Yeah.
So when you hear stories like that, and then the Saudi Arabia thing that you mentioned, so just recently they lifted a ban where women can ride motorcycles and drive.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel, and does that drive you to keep going, keep pushing?
It's exactly how you said it. It drives me and it keeps going. It reminds me that we are still not out of the woods when it comes to creating this opportunity for women and bringing it to them. And with International Female Ride Day, 12 years in, it is still expanding and growing in numbers, not necessarily in countries, but just in the numbers of women participating, which demonstrates to me that this is important. And the bottom line is it's creating friendships and developing camaraderie, but also unifying us. I think it's one of the few events that there's no judgments on what type of bike you ride or what style you ride or how old you are or what language you speak. We're demonstrating with International Female Ride Day too that there's this camaraderie in motorcycling, that it just communicates through all borders, which is amazing.
So with the upcoming ride, in particular Toronto, since we're in the greater Toronto area here, if people wanted to participate, where can they find out more info and how can they participate in the ride?
Well, the best platform and tool is Facebook. And all you do is punch in a search there, International Female Ride Day Toronto or whatever location. But I think what's special too is to note that this whole thing, what all women are referring to as a global movement, started right here in Toronto. So Canadian proud.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Over the course of your career, I'm sure you've had some pretty interesting rides, probably all over the world. What was your most fun ride?
Yeah, it's funny, that word fun, because I must be odd, but even when I get on my motorcycle to meet people and teach them, examine them for the M license, even the first kilometer, I'm smiling in a straight line. I don't care. After all these years, if I'm on a bike and I'm moving, I'm happy. I'm really overjoyed with it. Easy to please. But there are memorable moments, though.
Like?
And I think think back to the first time I went through the French Alps, and we got to altitudes where there's snow around you. You know, it's such extreme difference. I think that's pretty cool on a bike.
That's something that really I would love to do one time. I mean, I guess the idea of riding like in a mountainous region where there's switchbacks and so on, I mean, that just...
Yeah, and then dealing
incredible.
with the change in the temperature.
Sure.
But, you know, Jasper and Banff has that opportunity as well. And then you see a lot of grizzly bear and black bear on the side of the road too, which is quite fun. But I think the most recent and my most
fun or scary?
Well, yeah, you forget it's a wild animal, and you're running after to get a photo, and then you realize, hey, it could come after me. But I have my helmet and gear on, I'll be okay. No, not really. But yeah, I think the most memorable to date for me has to be my experience riding in India. I'd never been to India before, and the country won me over completely. Mm-hmm. I've never met such beautiful people from the inside. Mm-hmm. And the women that I went over to celebrate International Female Ride Day with the Bikerney as a guest. And I've known the Bikerney since the club founded in 2011. I know the ladies very well. And we had an amazing experience. The girls were surprised that I could conquer the streets of Mumbai with no problem. And I attribute that to racing. You know, when we had 40 bikes going through the first corner, you had to find a hole. Yeah. And that was the same with the traffic in Mumbai. You find a hole.
I've never been there, but I've seen videos of the traffic there, and I cannot imagine riding there.
It's pretty cool. It's super fun.
Wow.
Yeah, and you will hit people. But, you know, you kind of look at each other and go, hey, shake your head sideways. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But, you know, the women took me to very non-touristic areas. We went to Daman and Gujarat up the coast for the Female Ride Day celebration. Mm-hmm. And then for 2 weeks I rode around, and various women would tag on for a couple days and join us in different parts. It was summer. It was 42 Celsius.
Ooh, hot.
And the air is not good over there, so it's hard to breathe. However, it was not a problem for me. We made our rides early in the morning. Of course, it's like the Caribbean. It's cooler, so you got to be on the road by 6. Take some breaks along the way. But the color, you know, the soil is orange, and all of a sudden in the distance you'll just see this carving of what's left of a wind carved out piece of rock. Right. And then out of nowhere is this bright pastel multicolored temple. But of course the sadness is the poverty. It's sometimes very hard to look at. But the whole experience completely Indianized me.
When was that you were there?
That was 2015.
Oh, okay.
15? Yeah. And man, we had fun. All the women on Female Ride Day, we were riding the streets in Daman and Gujarat. And, well, we've had friendships that have bonded there and are as strong today. In fact, I'm trying to do the Himalayas next year with these ladies.
Wow.
Yeah, the highest motorable road.
Yes. Okay.
So I even bought a Royal Enfield when I came back to Canada, because
as a result of that.
Yeah, it's simple, it's classic, it's old school, and the last night when I left India, the Royal Enfield Club of Mumbai had joined in my farewell party, which was a lot of men. And they were so proud to introduce me to their Royal Enfields and how they'd changed them up a bit and customized them, and I had to sit on it and start them up, and it was really quite an amazing experience.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So from your perspective, what do you think that you're going to be looking to see in the movies as a judge this year at the festival?
I think for me foremost is the truthfulness in the film being shown, the reality. I like to see that. I like to see the real deal when it comes to motorcycling. And, you know, portraying a part, an aspect of motorcycling, because there's so many aspects of motorcycling.
Right.
And all are super fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Vicki. I'm really looking forward to working with you on the festival. I wish you much success. I don't think you need my wishes, but I wish you much success on International Female Ride Day. I'm sure it's going to be stupendous.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm so excited to be part of this amazing thing you've started.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We'll be introducing the other members of our judging panel over the course of the next couple of weeks, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram and tune in to our future podcasts where we'll chat with them. And if you have questions for Vicki, post them in the comments below and we'll get her response.